to the cloud. Okay. All right. So WebSocketd, we're logging into the local Jeremy box, tux, and password, and log in. We make your account, change directory to account. And what we'll be doing is bringing up the website that I have for this class, phillipsd.com/210 websocketd_info.txt. And what we are going to put in our account directory to file. In our account directory, we will be putting, so we changed our account. We'll be creating two files. One is called count.html and one is called count.sh. The contents of these files are on this website. Okay. And what these do is WebSocketd is a tricky little piece of software that takes the output of your command and puts it on the web. It will also take input and put it into your computer. So if you use an HTML form, you can use WebSocketd to capture information. So where is this? This link is, let me find. Here we go. So if I go to Canvas here and go to test out, this link up here, ongoing notes, it's this one. And right there where it says WebSocketd, that's where we're going. So we're going to WebSocketd. We're doing this on our local machine in front of us. We log in as tux, use Jeremy 231, and we're making a directory called count. We're changing directory and we're going to put two files in there. Click there, and that's what we get. Okay. All right. So move this out of the way. Get this out of the way. All right. So let's create our two files. Now there's a couple ways we can do this, and I will demonstrate both ways. So let's create this one first. Okay. So all I do is highlight it, right click, copy. And now what I can do is paste this into my file called count.h. But how? Remember this? This was my big raise that I got at Foster Farms. All it does is it redirects output into the shell. Okay. So if I hit enter and then paste and then Control C and then count.h, there it is. Yeah. Ah, good point. You need binoculars, huh? It's phillipsd.com/210 websocketd_info.txt. XT, all lowercase, and it's just a flat text file, as they call flat ASCII. And we are creating two files in our directory. So we create a directory called count, and then inside of it, we're going to have count.sh and count.html. Okay, there's one. Now, the other way to do it is we can say vi count.html. Make sure it's in insert mode. Go over here, shrink it down so I can get the whole script in here. And it starts from doc type. It goes all the way down here to script. Okay. This is not perfect HTML code, but for what we're doing, it's going to work, I think. And then I do Control-Shift-V, put it in there. So now I have my two files. And this is where I'm going to stop and make sure everybody gets caught up. One of them should be executable. So if I run it from the script here, all it does is count. That's what all it does. Nothing fancy. That's it. Okay. Now, let's reverse what we did. All right. We're logging in at Tux. We're making a directory called count, changing directory count, and then creating two files from that website. And then let me know if you need help. And then let's get that everybody caught up to that. And from there, we'll tinker with some more stuff. Then now you can type it in for that. You don't have to. Yep, that's verifying it's installed. That's good. So if you go to the website, phillipsd.com/10, that one right there on the board in red. It brings up the page of the two files that will be used. So you don't need to log in. You're in the right one. So right now, just type in mkdir space count. And then for the CD space count. This one for okay. Now you want to take this first one down to the right click copy. Now you just type. So type in cat space minus greater than space count.sh. Here I then do Control-V or Control-Shift-V. Control-C. Now that's now do chmod space plus sign x space count and then ./count.sh. Yeah, just put a ./ in front of it. See if we can run it. And you come back. Once you get the file, you change the permissions. If I try to type count.sh, it won't work. Because why? Well, in my case, it will work because of the pass statement. You want to put / in front of it because count is not a directory that's in your search path. And then it should just count to 30 or 10 or whatever you got. Okay. Once we get those. Okay. All right. chmod count that I say. / count. Okay, you can type it in if you want, but you don't have to. Go to that website over there. phillipsd.com. And you got them? Yeah, chmod. Sign X. Space. Now do / cat count.sf. Oh, it's empty. VI count.sf. Now, you only want the first few lines. That's too much. A lot of fun here. Pressure. Editing. And then you only want that's only. Say everything. There you go. Look at that. Working. Now, from doc type down, that needs to go into account.html. Thank you for helping each other. This is how we're doing it. Once you create count.sh, let's create a count.html. Yippee skippy. All right. So this is an HTML file, and we're putting both of them into the same directory. So we have account sh and we have account HTML in the same directory called count. And what do we do? So if I type in Firefox count.html, it gives me some errors, but it says disconnect. But if I go back and I do this and run this and run refresh, yeah, it should be talking. I think I have to fire it up after the fact. All right, making a liar out of me. Oh, I know what I did wrong. You have to Sorry, thank you. Localhost 8080. See if this behaves. No. All right, what am I missing? Darn it. That's what happens when you sleep a few times. You get the demo working, you forget about it. Oh, wow. Brain dead. Okay, I forgot the most important piece, the piece that puts it together. I've got the presentation and I've got the guts, but I forgot the piece that actually connects them. That's this thing. We need to turn on WebSocketd. Duh. My goof. So what we do is we say clear here. And what I will do is put in WebSocketd. And let's give it the port 8080. And then we give it the name of our program that is executable. Count.sh, right? Okay. And now, once we do this, you can see it's giving you some information. And now I can go up here to localhost 8080. Oops. What do I need? I'm missing something. I think what I need is that. Yeah, there we go. Now it's working.
What did you do with your command line?
Now I will show you in a second here. What's happening is that WebSocketd is running in your command. And then we have WebSocketd, the port, and the name of the program. What's happening is when you see count 1, 2, 3 go out, WebSocketd is taking that and putting it through the web on HTTP traffic. Okay. And what you're looking at here is typical web logging. So we have basically created a very minimal web server, and we're creating a script that sends it to the web. WebSocketd will take standard in and standard out. Anybody have a slant for being misbehaved in security? This is a tool that you can use for nefarious things. Okay. You can use it for good or bad. But notice it says message 1, 2, 3, 4 down, and then there's a connect and a disconnect. So let's walk through what's actually happening. Okay. In one window, I'm running WebSocketd port 8080. That's just bound on a high order port that typically is not used. Okay. And then I tell it what program to run. And then in my other window, I run, notice the directory I'm in. I'm in my directory count where the count HTML file lives. So the first thing I do is turn on the web server. Blip. Next thing I do is open Firefox to look at it. And then there's my messages displaying through this. Now, I want everybody to get this working because this is one of those things that you will do in school and you'll forget about. But when you get out into industry, you will have to know this for doing anything in the web. So this is also, it's a great interview question. WebSocketd. Yeah. If you can explain this, how it's working. And WebSocketd has got its own website called WebSocketd. And it shows you the tutorial and you can pick your programming language. And as you can see, I just ripped it off and used this. And they're using the console log here. Okay. Now, how many have done JavaScript? Okay, the console log is something that you can activate inside JavaScript to fire up something to view, even though it's not technically part of your process. It's the console log is actually firing off the log file system inside your web browser. Okay. So let's get this working. And let's walk around and help everybody get things going. Okay. Let me move this.
It's a file.
How many have success? We've got it all working? No, 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 yes. No. Web, yeah. You're on guest. You need to log in as Tux. And then there you go. Jeremy, forgot one. And then it'll work. If you're logged in on the Jeremy box, it's not going to work because Port 880 is closed and I don't have WebSocketd installed. So it's only going to work on the machine in front of you. It will also work in your VM. Okay. Working? Okay. Let's look at your. Just count by the six. Let's see. And just type in /count by the six. So do VI. Some things that are missing. You're missing a gun. Yes. Because if I scroll up here, you're missing the very last line. So go ahead and put that in, save it, and rerun it. Okay. Success. Awesome, awesome. Now for grinching people, let's put it in your VM. Oh, because you can take the VM at the end of the semester.
Just hit up arrow.
Haha. Control C. Now go to that WebSocket.
And get rid of the.
One more. There we go. Hit enter. And now go to fire. There we go. No.
You have this, right? Yeah. When I go there, it says, okay, there's two things. So try it, just like.
Okay. Let's go over here and cat.
Yeah, that's.
And the cat space. Yeah, that's one. So do VI count. And hit the letter I, so it's insert mode. And then over here and post. And then copy from doc type down to script.
Copy.
So it's the I section.
Yeah.
And then save close. And start it over again. So on the other one, just hit over right. Okay, now run your script. Get up there. That sounded it's working. Ooh. Yeah. Copy, cut, and paste inside the DM. There's another way. You can do wget to copy the stuff from the command line. And that's what I use. It's just just stick to everything. Just type in wget that URL. That'll give you the file. That's the cheated way. Getting it? Okay, let's do this for Control C. And run count by itself. So it should do get rid of WebSocketd and work do ./count. Okay, that's working. Good. And now cat count.html. Okay, that's it. Okay. So on one line, one side, you want to do well, yeah, it's going to give you those errors because what's happening is should work. Yeah, so go ahead and start it over here. And then just click on go to the command line. Back in Firefox. Oh, you're on the right box. You need to be all on your local machine. On your Do W3 space. Yeah, that might be installed first. This is the and then you type in file slash 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 top. Yeah, it's just that that should not be in your font.
Yeah, I don't know what.
So it works when you called it from there, when you type in. Now, let's go back to the same thing with Firefox. Let's bring up Firefox. That's an error with Firefox. We have an interesting problem over here. It's just following the. He's got bad computer vibes that are just following him to infect his button machine. What it says here, sorry, home directories outside of home needs configuration. So what this is telling you is that you're logged in as guest, but yet you're still doing things through touch. Logged in. When you install software, go ahead and just log out. And because you see you're logged in as guest. Guest doesn't have any permission. That's who you were logged in as. So I should be yeah, with Jeremy 231. Now everything will be hey. But now you may have to do it all over again because I don't know if you saved it in the directories or not. If you save it in guest, okay, count. We'll see what happens. So if you are logged in as guest, you're going to get all kinds of errors. Okay.
You have to be logged in as even if you switch user accounts afterwards.
The switch user mostly works, but not always, because of what we're doing is you're actually firing up the web browser, and that's fired up underneath the user ID of guest, which doesn't have the right permission. All right. Anyway, back to the Firefox and this thing called snaps. This is a thing that is coming your way. There's other tools in this space, but what a snap does is when you install a snap on Ubuntu, let's say it's Firefox, think of it as the easiest, shortest way to wrap your head around all this weirdness that's happening in the world of Linux distros is it's creating a Docker-like container. Everything that Firefox needs from the top to the bottom is in its own container. It's not Docker and it's not LXD or LXC or a VM. It's unique. So this snap is actually installing everything you could possibly need for Firefox. More and more things are going this way, especially on the desktop because of Wayland. I won't get too far into this, but on this machine, if I type in snap list. I could spell it right. These are all the things that get installed when you are running a desktop version of Ubuntu. And you're saying, well, I don't like all this idea. I'll go Red Hat. Well, Red Hat has its own system that's similar but different than Snap. Guess what? So does Microsoft. They have a version that lets you install everything to run a Microsoft thingy in a container, but it's not compatible with Snap or the Red Hat version, which I can't remember the name of it. Flatpak is the other one. Flatpak is the name of the one on Red Hat. And there's this war right now. Who's going to win in the market? Flatpak. This is what always happens. You know, oh, let's do vendor lock-in and blah, 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 blah. And it usually boils down to the big three. So there's usually three in the space: GM, Ford, Chrysler, Apple. You know, it's just kind of the way it works in the world of business. So they are both variations on a theme. Why? Because hardware is getting more diverse and more complex, and it's impossible to handle all the dependencies. So if you create this container-like thing, it's transparent to the user. That's your future. You're not going to have an operating system. It's going to boot a web browser, and everything's going to run in a tab. And that is how you're going to do your computing in the future. Look how Apple's doing it. Look how Chrome OS is doing it. Can you get around on Chrome OS at the command line on a Linux prompt? Yeah, you have to put the box into dev mode. You actually have to reboot the box, wipe out all your configs, and put it into dev mode. And oh my gosh, if you boot it by accident back into standard mode, all that dev mode stuff disappears. So you have to redo it all over again. Okay. But on Chrome OS, you can run a Linux Debian container, just like what we've done on our VM with VM12 here, or Debian 12. So the days of independent OSs running on hardware eventually will come to an end. And then you'll just have some sort of a browser that sits on top. And your BIOS is going to be really fat, because inside the BIOS, you're going to have some sort of a kernel that boots everything it needs to get the web browser up. The sooner you jump on board with that, folks, the sooner you're going to have those leading edge careers where the money is. The money is always on the leading edge, not the trailing edge. Okay. So find out something interesting and new that's breaking, study that, and get a job in that area. It's a lot harder to stay on front of the curve because you never really know where the curves are going. Okay. All right. So we've just done Websocketd. Does everybody have a success? Yes, no, kind of, sort of. All right, good. All right. Now, what I want to do is give you some ideas here for our quiz we're going to have on Thursday. Another blank index card. So take notes, because this is going to be the exact same thing. So if you don't take notes, it's your own darn fault. Okay. All right. What are we going to do? Well, what I want to do is show you some interesting things. It's paused. I don't want it to pause. I want it to continue. Resume share. Okay. When I log in, let me do this. Change direct bash RC. Or, notice after bash aliases, I've got this file called funcs. It's called functions. Just like a library in C++, import turtle in Python, functions. It's just got a dot in front of it so it doesn't cloud up your ls. What's in it? This. Now, mine is different. Now, let me make this nice and big so you can all see it. Let me bring it up in the editor so it gives you some colors. Now, notice it says clipboard here. This is one I use every single day. And I'll show you what it does. But notice it starts with a squirrely and ends with a squirrely. And it says clipboard : That's a function. It doesn't say def. You don't label it. You just give it a name with open close. The one I want you to memorize for the quiz is this one. That has some squirrely syntax in it. And I'm going to explain what this thing does over the course of a couple of days, okay? Notice this one here. It says W header and W footer. And then these are fun. I wanted to show you these just for fun. Retire date and end date. Notice these are commented out. This just calculates the number of days at the end of the semester. And this is my dartboard throw of my retire date. Give or take a few weeks, months, who knows? It's just a dart, okay? So notice that I have retire date : end date : or open close parens, okay? So I can type in, whoops, what do I get? The calculation of how many days I have till the end of the semester, okay? And let's put in retire date. This is kind of fun. I told my kids this and they said, "Are you really going to retire?" I said, well, define really retire. Because I will leave the 6 months I'm required, but then I'll probably come back, take care of the lab and teach a Linux class here and there. We'll see. I do not want to see the lab turn into a giant archive of dead computers. That would just be sad. That's kind of what's looking like is going to happen because there's nobody that knows Linux like I do that even wants to do this. Okay. Now, this calcit, it works with floating point. 4 times 2 or 3.2. Notice I'm using quotes. That gives me an answer. Do you think that could be handy? Just a little. Now, when you log in and you get your bash RC and your aliases, if you type in aliases, plural, alias, these are all the aliases that are set. These are the ones I set, plus there's some system ones in here. This is a system one. That's a system one. I don't set that one. But most of the rest of these I've set, okay? Oops. Same with our functions. If you type in the word set, it will show you all the functions that are defaulted when you log in, and then your additional ones in your .func file, okay? There's my footer, my header, retire date. Now, quote, red line, read line, I didn't do that one. I didn't do this one either. But there's a bunch in here, a lot in here that are automatically enabled when you log in. And this is a function of Bash and all the programmers that have worked on this over decades. Look how long this goes. It's still going. So let's see how many lines it is. Let's do set word count minus L, 2,226 lines. Mine is about a page. So maybe 26 of those lines are mine. So there's 2,200 lines of functions that are available to you every time you type in the word bash. That's a lot of stuff. It's all in the environment. Remember what I was saying? If you understand the environment and the key value, that's web programming. I have a name field and I got something in the field. I pass it back to the database as the key value, and the database sucks it in, puts it into the right place in the database. In memory. It does not write it to disk. Okay. So let's look at this calc-it. Okay. This is the magic. Okay. I can't leave it highlighted like that because it just goes away. Can everybody see this line? Sort of, kind of. All right. This is your quiz that you're going to write down on a white piece of paper. And if you can't do it between now and Thursday, okay, maybe you want to rethink your major. This is what? Less than 50 characters. Okay. What is this doing? Well, it's doing some crazy stuff. First of all, calc-it is the name I gave it. Okay. And I ripped this off from somebody else. I modified it to my use. Print F you use in C. When you do stdio.h and you do a printf statement, but it's also available to you at the command line, whether or not you're using K shell, Z shell, Bourne shell, Bash shell, Z shell, and on it goes. Printf is actually a chunk of code that runs. Okay, it's an executable object. This quote, double quote, %s means string. Now, wait a minute. If it's a string and I got numbers and it did floating point, how did that work? I'll explain the magic in a second. This we'll talk about more on Thursday, the $amper. That means all arguments. We'll get into that a little bit more on Thursday as far as what the $pound, $1, $question, what they all mean. Okay. Vertical bar means redirect. BC is our binary calculator that does algebra. It also does floating point. The -L is saying load the default math library that gives you ridiculous, God crazy, arbitrary decimal precision. So you want to calculate pi? Yeah, you can probably do it. Your machine might melt, but you can do it. The library will support it. This library has evolved over many decades, and it's quite fast, quite efficient, and very good. So what calc-it does is it takes the numbers I put between the quotes as a string, and it shoves them into BC, and it creates the answer and it displays it back. That's what this does. This says, take the input, put it here, and take the output and print it this way. How many have tried in, this is pretty obscure. If you took 272 or 271, you might remember this. Can you do a C out with a straight floating point number? Or I should say, well, maybe that's not quite the right answer. Within the scope of ZY books, the answer is probably yes. So, and we don't get into Turtle, and we don't get into graphics. Well, in Python, when you're using the Turtle module, you cannot print to the screen at all unless it's a string. So all numbers have to be converted to strings. And this also happens in C++ when you start getting too much nested stuff. You just need to render your numbers as strings before they're presented to the user. Okay. So what is happening here is I am taking the output and putting it as a string. Now, let's play with something that's got a ridiculous number of decimal points. Can't remember what it is. Yeah, there we go. So remember, it needs quotes. And then I believe, I could be wrong on this. How come I only got 2? I'm going to encourage you to think for a second. We are passing our input to BC, our binary calculator. Notice that file says .bc rc. We have a bash rc, don't we? And what's in that bash rc? Kind of an initialization file for bash. Resource controls, what RC stands for. So we have something in our BC resource control that limits the output to 2 decimals. So let's change it. Do the same thing. So, anybody interested in calculating their own biorhythms? Well, you can do it. How many days you've been alive? And start dividing by the different numbers like 23 and 28. Find out if you're a positive number, you're up here. If you're a negative number, you're down here, and so on and so forth. No, they're all positive numbers. It's just when you're here, it's 0, here it's 1. And then anything less than 0.5 is on the upswing. Anything greater than 0.5 is on the downswing. Looking at a decimal in floating point. Okay. It's kind of fun to play with that kind of thing. When I learn a new programming language, I like to throw math at it to see how it handles math. because you do a lot of things with statistics, and you want to make sure your numbers don't lie. So you want to double check everything, because there are mistakes in computer codes. You know, they do their best to vet it, but it does happen. Okay. So what did I do here? Well, 355 divided by 113 is a close yeah, it's a fuzzy way to create pi. Now, let's edit this file again and put in something really big. Or better yet, let's just delete it. So we have nothing. We have no limits. So if we cat that file, there's nothing in it. And it defaults to, looks like 20. But when we set it to 200, look what it did. So I think there's a limit. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. Let's do scale is equal to 65,550. Let's see what happened. Seg fault. Well, that worked. So obviously it can go pretty big as far as, that was pretty darn fast. Look at how many lines that is. Oh my goodness gracious. All right. So that was pretty intense. Okay. So again, what's in that calc kit is this. On your quiz, what file are you going to put your functions into? .funcs. Does it have to be that? No. It just has to be referenced to that. You could put it in your bash aliases if you wanted, but I don't recommend that because then you'll get confused on where you put stuff. Okay. So where you put your functions? Well, we'll put them in dot functions. Okay. And what do we put in there? We're going to put in those 3 lines. That's it. Okay. Now, again, this will be blank paper. So you should be able to do this one, right? And then we will simply say the printf as, you know, the printf line, and then the close bracket. Okay. That's it.
It doesn't run unless you do source.
Exactly. You have to source it if you want to bring it into your working environment. Just like when we changed bash RC and we changed the path, we had to type in source to get it to reread that file to come in. Okay. Or dot, either one. Okay. Now let me show you what these others do. When I was working in industry, I had these set up as functions and used them all the time. Let me show you why. All right, let's have some fun with this. Let's see here. I'm going to change the scale back to 2 just for fun. All right. Remember, I have W header. What's it do? That's it. What is that? Footer. What is that? Yeah, the top part of an HTML file, the bottom part of an HTML file. And notice the pre-tag. So I can say header into hello.html. I'll do calendar 2024 into hello.html. And I will do footer. Appending, that's what the double means. Now, if I do Firefox as Tux user, not guest, what do I get? Instant web page. Right click, view page source. A little hard to see. Look familiar? Now, let me show you something. This is why the pre-tag is a sysadmin's favorite tag. I'm just taking out the pre-tag. That's all I'm doing. What happened? HTML is white space agnostic. It will ignore white space unless told to look at it, which is the pre-tag. The pre-tag says preserve the white space. So you create a header, throw out your log file, create your footer, throw it up on the website, and the boss is happy because he can click on a link and see what's going on with the computer. Really simple. You can get a lot fancier with this. I was telling Zach earlier, I was reading about BusyBox, and I don't think I'll bring BusyBox into this class, but BusyBox was forked by one of the main guys that wrote it to something called Toybox because of licensing arguments. It was all about licensing. And the guy that he was giving his history of why he went from BusyBox to Toybox and so on and so forth. And I went to his website, and all of his history was stored in .txt files on the website. And I'm going, yes, that's an easy way to put stuff on the web. Just use a flat text file, just like we did when I put up the WebSocket info txt. It's an easy way to put information out there. Copy, cut, and paste. Okay. So another option is I could do that calendar here and just call it cal.txt. Well, I should put the date in there. And then I'll do Firefox cal24.txt. And there we go. So using straight text files will work, but your boss is going to say, can't we add some color? Can't we add something, make it look a little nicer? Because you won't have any, there's no control over how this is rendered. When you use HTML, you can use this cascading style sheet, and you can do all kinds of fancy fonts and make it look pretty. And you can make it look like the rest of the websites, like I do with my static web pages. It's straightforward, but for personal note taking, you can't beat this, because then you can just highlight what you want and use it again. Okay, and it's fast. Okay, so what made that mess up? Taking out the pre-tag. Okay, so let's put it back in. So it's just right there, free, and then at the very bottom. So the way it works is it reverses, so last in, first out type thing. So now I have the preserve white space on my page. Now when I run Firefox on hello, all much prettier. And because it's HTML, I can do things like this, and I can skin it with cascading style sheets. Okay. All right. Can't do that with flat text. Okay. So what's on our quiz? Dot funcs, calcit, different statement. Everybody got it? Everybody ready for that? Good. Because I will give you another chance to do the for and the if. I would say we were about 40-60 as far as passing. And everybody's going to pass it by the time we're done with it. Because you should be able to walk out of here with a few things memorized. Okay. And let me show you one other thing with the funcs. That clipboard. If I say Cal 2024, goes straight to the screen, right? If I do clipboard, where to go? It's in my clipboard. Okay. My clipboard on Linux is not like Windows where you get one and you have to remember it. And if you one over it, you bummer. I've got all these in there. I can set this history to as many or as few as I want. Okay. So I can open another file here. And for the sake of argument, let's say, let's do LibreOffice Writer here. And because it's in my cut buffer, so the clipboard works really well if I have X windows. Because if I look at my functions, it says clip. And then it says, okay, and then there's an error. It says, uh-oh, remember to install Xclip. Now this, I just ripped off from somebody else, and I've been using it daily. The only thing I wish is that I should have used CB instead of clipboard. Okay, but but with tab expansion, you can type in CLIP tab. It's still pretty fast. So what is this doing? It's doing the same thing as doing this from the command line. Xclip -I means put it into the clipboard, named clipboard. And this says take it out of the clipboard, okay? And notice it says it's not a pipe, and it's showing you kind of how it works, okay? Kind of handy. But this one is the one that you'll really get to like this one, because that being able to do quick additions right on the command line, like you want to do a bunch of stuff, you don't have to fire up another piece of code. You just type it in and we'll see whatever. And I'm showing you this just because this is an easy way to calculate beginning end date. So if you want to say how many days is it till Christmas, you can do that. You just change this to 12/25, whatever year you want, and then this subtracts it and gives you the number of days, roughly. It's not perfect, but it's close enough. Close enough to keep kids happy, right? All right. And that's all I got.
Quick question for the .bcrc to like resize the amounts that you calculate. Me editing that doesn't change anything. So if I do calculate, I got that amount.
Right.
And if I do vi.bcrc, I go in there. scale to 2 already.
Let me show you the proper way to the invocation of this should don't have it there. It should say Q and then all right.
Are we fused? Oh yeah, you can bounce, bro. Okay, yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
I was like,
That's technically the correct way. L means use the math library. Q means quiet the copyright, and then use this BCRC file to initialize our run. This is the correct invocation. This way, it forces the read of the BCRC. Because I had a BCRC that was empty, it knew, remembered it. But this is the correct way. Okay. So let me fix that. I don't really care if you remember that or not. To force the read, this gives you the ability to name it anything you want. This is also the default. So if you don't, like, that's why it worked for me. It's because that's the default. Okay. And it had the right permissions on it. Okay. This is explicit. This is implicit. Both work if everything is correct.
that works.
Awesome. Okay. Questions? Any complaints? Any brain earwax melting? All right. That's all I had. And then if you're in the next class, hang around. We'll have some fun with HR. I actually have an HR director that I was in my classes for several years. And he went off and made a bunch of money. Once he got his degree,
I had a quick question.
sure.
You said something about the for loop and the other quiz we took last time. I said you could redo it or something.
Yeah. Which one? Are we talking about the for loop or the if loop or?
Or is it just one that you could choose?
Hmm?
Is there only one we could choose between the two, or we could redo both?
We can redo anything.
Oh, so
Yeah.
we would just write it on the same page on that?
Oh, I'll give you another. I'll make sure everybody is ready for it.
Oh, okay.
So I'll give plenty of warning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. No worries. No
Have
worries.
a great day.
You too. Take it easy. apparently that's a better calculation for pi for decimal points greater than 100,000. So if you want to calculate pi to greater than 100,000 decimal points, use that calculation. You want to melt your Raspberry Pi? Well, this is more accurate for long decimal points. The 355 over 113 is good up to about 10,000 or so. If you want to go past 10,000, use this one. So if I change my scale, let's make it something ridiculous. Too large. There's a limit. So this is the limit right there of how big you can make it. Okay. So we need it to be set to and I will make this 6.
Oh, it's chuggy.
I hear the fan turn on. Now, is BC, if I was to do this for real, I wouldn't use BC because BC is single threaded. I would use some sort of tool that would allow me to make this go so much faster. But still, that ain't too shabby. How many decimal? 21 million decimal points. Who's got instant recall? You want to fill it? Now let's redirect this to a hard disk and then wipe out everything, right? Yeah. It's a great way to do that. Do read and writes with random data. That's what the DoD write does. It uses random data, wipes it out, writes it again, wipes it out. I don't remember how many times, but that DoD wipe is pretty intensive. You're not going to be able to recover anything off a hard drive after it's been DoD wiped. So if you take your old hard drives to recycling, they pay you a premium because there are investors that are taking old hard drives and looking for Bitcoin wallets. Ta-da! That's crazy.
Have a good night.
You too.